Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to review the book Atom, Journey Across the Subatomic Cosmos by Isaac Asimov. Now, I have spoken about Mr. Asimov in the past. When I was younger, I read some of his fiction, and I'm going to be honest with you, while I remember some of the structure, some of the storylines, some of the overall worlds that he created, I don't remember a lot of the details. Not many of them stuck in my head. I was much more of an Arthur C. Clarke fan, I guess, when it comes to that genre of writing, that era of fiction. However, I've read, I believe, 3 of his non-fiction books. One dealing with biology, chemistry, this one, and the other one was more of a general science book, a series of essays that he had written over time. But the chemistry and the atom book are both focused on a particular topic. And I have to say that I consider Mr. Asimov to be one of the best non-fiction science writers that I have ever encountered. Flat out. The man is incredibly well-spoken and absolutely unbelievably approachable. Now, this book deals with, not surprisingly, the atom. And he starts with the most basic piece of atomic history, which is the Greeks. And he progresses forward. And some of the things he does with this is that he's layering things. A little bit at a time. Little small doses. And he frequently has an aside. Like, he'll literally, in a paragraph, in brackets, he will say, you know, I'll get back to this at a further point in the book. And it's very reassuring to the reader. Because he's talking about some concepts in here that are big. And you know he's not abandoning you. It's though he's speaking to the reader. He's breaking that fourth wall. He's not just talking about a subject. He's speaking to the reader directly. He makes a little asides in there about how, you know, science sometimes is wrong, or scientists sometimes will use a term that is inaccurate. But because it's the first term used, it becomes the most common. It becomes, you know, the colloquial term to use. So we're stuck with it. And he disagrees with some of the things that the scientific researchers have done, and he talks about that in the book. So this isn't just a dry text where you are the passive receptor of information. This book very much gives you the impression that you're having a conversation with the author. That he is there listening to you. He is reassuring you that things are going to be explained at a later date, because at that moment you'll be wondering, well, if this happens, then... And then he's there to catch that question even as you ask it. It was incredibly well done. And there's a quote on here from Omni magazine, and that right there made me smile, because I can remember buying and reading Omni magazine when I was younger. I looked forward to that magazine so much. But there's a quote in here that says, "Masterpiece!" And Omni, in this case, was correct. This is the book that should be handed to every single high school freshman in the world. And then this is the book we should be using for our physics to understand things. Yes, there should be supplemental material. But this is not a book controlled by textbook manufacturers, which are going to become obsolete in, you know, a single term or 2 terms. That drives me insane. This book will explain things to the reader up to a certain point in history. I would believe it was printed in 91. So, for example, the Higgs boson had not been discovered yet, though he does refer to it, and discusses the fact that someday it hopefully will be discovered, and it was. And if we use this, we would have a much better understanding of atomic structure in the Western world, in my opinion. At least in the United States. I can't speak for how Europe or Canada or Mexico handles it. I can tell you that in America, they handle it poorly. So, this is an incredibly good book. I recommend it to anyone that enjoys good writing, enjoys approachable science, and has an interest in the topic of expanding your understanding of subatomic particles. I'm going to pass this on to my wife and see if she wants to read it, because I think that she would find it interesting. Her interest in science is less than mine, however, so I'm not sure. My topics of interest are somewhat broad. But again, read this book. It's very important. It's very approachable. I need to hunt down every non-fiction book that this guy has ever written. In fact, I just bought one recently. At the top of my head, I can't remember which one it was, but I found it at a yard sale for like 50 cents. So I'll be reading another one of his books in the near future. Mr. Asimov was a treasure when it came to nonfiction. And I wish that he could just keep writing science books for us forever.